Now, before I get started in this video, I want to say rest in peace to that guy in Minnesota, and I extend my prayers to the state of Minnesota with the chaos they have had to deal with these last 2-3-ish weeks. I've made my sentiments very clear in my video talking about the Trae Young trade to the Washington Wizards. Now I'm just going to leave it at that. Now on to the video. Obviously, we are a week and a half away from the trade deadline. The trade deadline will be Thursday, February 5th, if I'm not mistaken. Let me go check my calendar. Things are already heating up as is, with a lot of popular names thrown around the trade market. Michael Porter Jr. being one of them, Larry Markkinen being one of them. I said that in my Warriors video as well. Giannis, Karl Towns being the more popular ones in the market. You get the story. And yes, to confirm, the trade deadline will be February 5th. Now, obviously, I haven't done a video like this since 2021. I didn't do anything about the 2022, 2023, 2024, nor 2025 trade deadlines because I was in and out of making videos. Last year, when I made my comeback, I kind of, went through the motions and just posted like every other week or so. You know what I mean? But now that I'm posting a lot more consistently now, I decided to make another video like this. Again, if you guys want to watch my 2021 trade deadline video, you could look at my timeline. Again, it'll be right there if y'all want to watch it. But yeah, I'm going to run it back again. And let's review some of these trades that I made up for y'all. So how I made these trades work is that I use SpotTrack NBA machine. That's my new go-to NBA trade machine right now because I used to use the ESPN one a lot until I kind of realized they just use like the players and not picks nor financial purposes and yada yada yada. So doing these trades through SpotTrack not only helped me understand trades from a basketball perspective on the court, but it also helped me gain a little understanding on what these teams could face financially when they execute said trades. So I feel like SpotTrack really helped me out when it comes to that. With that out of the way, let's get to some of my trade deadline predictions. Buckle up, y'all. So for my first trade, and this is one that I've been talking about on every video I make about the Pistons, I have Klay Thompson going to the Detroit Pistons in exchange for Caris LeVert and a first-round pick. And if for some reason the Pistons do not get Klay, a good alternative would be sending Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to the Pistons, again in the same deal, Caris LeVert and a first-round pick. Now, I've been banging on the drums for this particular trade, but that is because I felt like the Pistons could use an upgrade when it comes to shooting. Obviously, Duncan Robinson has been a godsend for the Pistons, and I believe he's better than Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. in that sense. But one of the things that might kill the Pistons in the playoffs would be a lack of perimeter shooting, especially coming off the bench. I understand Tobias Harris can shoot. I understand Cade Cunningham is a decent shooter. But if y'all look at the stats, I'm reading this off of ESPN.com, Duncan Robinson is the only one that takes a high volume or a high amount of threes, and he makes them at a high clip. He takes 3 to 7 threes a game, converting on 40.5% of them. The next guy who's averaging that much is Dennis Jenkins at 40.4, but he only takes 1 to 3 threes a game. Same with Marcus Sasser. Guys like Dennis Jenkins, Marcus Sasser, Jaden Ivey, Tobias Harris, Cade Cunningham, Caris LeVert, you name them, these guys are not three-point shooters. Tobias can shoot, but that's not his primary game. The guy is a face-up four that could score with his back to the basket or can score using his mid-range shot. And Ausar Thompson, as great of a defender he is, and as great as he is underneath the basket, when you put Ausar in the dunker spot, he sucks at shooting threes. Klay Thompson this year with the Dallas Mavericks is averaging the same amount of attempts as Duncan Robinson, but Klay is only averaging 38% from three this year, which is not bad. And you know what? That would be really, really good coming off the Detroit bench because, again, the play of Caris LeVert kind of interferes with guys like Dennis Jenkins and Jaden Ivey, who are the two primary ball handlers coming off the Detroit bench. Having Klay off the Pistons bench would give Cade another shooter to work with. And if Duncan Robinson gets into foul trouble for some reason, you can bring in Klay in that sense in the lineup. And besides, Kevin O'Connor, who is an NBA insider, has stated that Klay could be a viable trade candidate for the Detroit Pistons because Detroit could use a lot more shooting. Because, again, they don't need to have a team full of three-point shooters. They need a couple more guys that could really space the floor so you won't have to have Tobias shoot 7 threes or 8 threes in a playoff game, for example. You have guys like Duncan and Clay to fill that void. KCP to an extent too, but if you look at KCP's attempts from his 2 seasons with Denver, his lone season with Orlando, and what he's doing with the Magic with the Grizzlies right now, KCP could be a Levert type of player, but he's still a prototypical 3-and-D guy, and if you place him in a 3-and-D role, I think that's where KCP succeeds as well. So if you're not able to pull that trade for Klay Thompson, KCP is a good alternative option as well. And this trade would make sense for the Dallas Mavericks as well, because you get off of a contract like Klay's, you take on Caris LeVert, who could be that ball handler off the Dallas Mavericks bench, or you can throw him into the starting lineup with Najee Marshall and Max Christie, or whatever the hell Jason Kidd wants to do with those lineups, because he's having Najee start at point guard with Christie as the 2 guard. I don't know. But you can have Caris off the bench, or you can have him start as well. And again, because of the fact they're trying to build around Cooper Flagg, they're using AD and Klay's contracts as expendables. And I feel like it also makes sense for Dallas, because that's probably the best package they're going to get for Klay. As much as I would like Klay on the Lakers, I know, number one, Dallas is not going to do another deal with us for a while because of what we did to them last year with the Luka Doncic trade. And plus, if we made a call telling them, yo, we can give you Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Dog Connect, Maxi Kleber, or whatever the hell. If we say either of those players' names, whoever's running the Dallas Mavericks front office, they're hanging up that phone, in my opinion. Now, I just came up with this trade this morning, but this one right here is a doozy for y'all. So this is a 3-teamer. In this trade, I have Devin Vassell and Matisse Thybulle going to the Hornets. The Blazers get Harrison Barnes, Kelly Olynyk, and Pat Connaughton. And the Spurs get Drew Holiday, Josh Green, and Trey Mann. And if y'all zoom in closely, I have a couple of the Spurs picks, one going to Charlotte, the other going to Portland. I know that they might have to give up more first-round picks just to get a guy like Drew on their team. But the main objective here is to get a guy like Drew Holiday on the San Antonio Spurs, and let me tell you why. Devin Vassell is going to be an expiring contract, and just trading Devin for Drew straight up is not going to work. And I use the Hornets because I feel like they could have something going, which is why I also threw Matisse in there. So when it comes to the San Antonio Spurs, they get an upgrade off their bench with Drew, and to an extent Josh Green, because I do think Drew is going to come off the bench, especially for defensive purposes. Josh Green, we all know from his days with the Mavs playing with Luka and Kyrie, he's a good plug-in player. He's a good 3-and-D guy, energy bunny, that type of guy. You know what I'm saying? And I think Mitch Johnson could utilize him the way a guy like Greg Popovich used Patty Mills in the past, because I think Josh Green's a bigger Patty Mills, if y'all get what I'm saying. And then, obviously, Drew Holiday has chemistry with Luke Cornett from that Celtics team that won the championship in 2024. And I do think, since the Spurs are already a good defensive team, Drew being on that team elevates them even more. And yes, Drew Holiday is going to have to come off the bench. And I put Trey Mann on the Spurs just as guard filler. But Trey Mann is a nice guard to help your depth at the guard position, even though I think the Spurs would already be stacked at the guard position as is. I think Trey Mann would only add to that. But no, seriously though, if you have Drew come off the bench, this would be a really, really good defensive lineup that I think would be the most feared defensive lineup in the entire league. So down the stretches of a game where you need to get some stops defensively out of a timeout or on a dead ball, you have a defensive lineup of Drew Holiday, Stephon Castle, Julian Champagnie, Victor Wembanyama, and Luke Cornett. Or the alternative will be Drew, Castle, Keldon Johnson, Champagnie, and Victor as your defensive-minded 5. And again, with a guy like Josh Green, he's a good plug-in player, nice little 3-and-D guy that you can have off the bench for like 18 to 20 minutes. But I think both Drew and Josh would fit Mitch Johnson's system very well. And the Hornets getting Devin Vassell and Matisse Thybulle would add on to what the Hornets been quietly doing in the month of January. So the Hornets have been number 1 on offense and number 6 on defense in the month of January, which has been really impressive because they've beaten teams like the Philadelphia 76ers, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Lakers, and then a few other contenders in between. And in a lot of these games I've watched, the Hornets do not look like the same Hornets that would just quit on every other game. You know what I'm saying? Like 2022 to 2024-25, it's been really ugly. And they've been really unwatchable, despite the fact LaMelo Ball is putting up really good numbers. Brandon Miller's been nice. But I feel like Charles Lee, who was the Boston Celtics assistant head coach with Joe Mazzulla, I think he finally found a foundation and a system, especially when they drafted Con Canupal out of Duke University. getting a guy like Devin Vassell off their bench would add so much to them offensively, and then getting a guy like Matisse Thybulle would add on to what they're doing defensively. You know what I'm saying? So I think this would be a really good trade for the Hornets, and I don't see why they couldn't take on a couple of expiring contracts, see what they're going to do and how they could help the Hornets going forward, and they could re-sign both of them for all I know. And then for the Portland Trailblazers, it's to get off of mainly Drew Holiday's contract. And then you add some salary filler. Kelly Olynyk's a nice veteran. Pat Connaughton, you probably might have to come, even though he'll be going back to Portland. Harrison Barnes wouldn't be as bad for that Portland team. But I feel like because of the fact that they're already, they want to move on from Drew Holiday and a guy like Jeremy Grant, I don't think Harrison Barnes and Kelly Olynyk are that bad of a return, say, with Pat Connaughton. So, but I use Spot Track, and apparently it said Charlotte is going to have to cut one of those players, and I'm assuming that player is going to be Pat Connaughton because Connaughton is not really all that good. So this trade is pretty simple. I just straight up traded Russell Westbrook to the Houston Rockets for Aaron Holiday. The objective here is to get the Houston Rockets a point guard because Fred VanVleet has been out for the he's been out for the whole year because he tore his ACL before the start of training camp, and plus you've seen a lot of the Rockets' struggles because of the fact they do not have a true point guard. I know Amen Thompson can facilitate the ball. I know Reed Shepherd can facilitate the ball off the bench. Josh Okogie to an extent too. But I've told my dad this and I've told my friends this. If you're the Houston Rockets, do you want to go into the playoffs with Amen Thompson, Josh Okogie, Reed Shepherd, and Aaron Holiday as your primary ball handlers? Probably not. I know there are some other options out there. A month and a half ago, I recommended the Rockets to save James Harden from the Clippers because the Clippers were playing so bad. But as of recently, the Clippers have been playing very well, and the Clippers are probably going to take guys like James Harden and Ivica Zubac off the trade market, even though they might go after a guy like Benedict Mathurin. They might still give up Zubac for that to happen. But I think James Harden's going to be off the trade market, and any hopes of him going back to Houston is pretty much moot at this point. And yes, I want Russ back in OKC because I want to see him win. But I feel like he has a pretty good shot at winning with a team like the Houston Rockets because they have guys like Kevin Durant, Alfred Şengün. Obviously, nothing needs to be said between Russ and KD. He knows Royal Ivey, who's part of the Rockets coaching staff. And I think Russ would listen to a guy like Ime Udoka, and I think he would be bought into his system. And I know, before y'all get your panties twisted, man, I understand that Russell Westbrook is a turnover-prone guard. I understand that he doesn't make the best decisions with the ball in his hands. But again, I take my chances with Russ because at least I can go into the playoffs with a guy that can play point guard in the starting lineup. Because again, I'd rather have him in the starting lineup than my team going into the playoffs with Amen Thompson, Josh Okogie, Reed Shepherd as my primary ball handlers. It doesn't make sense. And they don't even play Aaron Holiday as well. And I don't even think he's good enough to be a primary ball handler. And I made this trade because it makes the most sense for Houston financially and position-wise, if that makes sense. But you won't have to give up too much as opposed to giving up for a lot for a guy like Ja Morant, for a guy like James Harden. I mentioned Drew Holiday and how much the Spurs would have to give up in that sense. But we all got to remember Russell Westbrook is on a minimum contract with the Sacramento Kings, and he's been playing really well given his contract and given the weird direction that the Sacramento Kings are going in. And we all know the Sacramento Kings, they ain't nothing but garbage, man. Ever since that 2022-23 dream season, they've been nothing but garbage. So it would be worth it to move on from guys like Russell Westbrook, DeMar DeRozan, Domantas Sabonis, Zach LaVine. And I think Russell Westbrook deserves to be on a contender. And again, I think the Houston Rockets would make the most sense for him, especially from a financial standpoint. Again, the Rockets won't have to give up too much as opposed to giving up a lot for a guy like, let's say, a Ja Morant, like I said, and then James Harden. And Aaron does not play that much as well. Like, he'll play in spurts when Ime needs to play him, but Aaron doesn't really play. So you're not really hurting your depth or your offense. You're really not hurting anything when you get a guy like Russell Westbrook. Yes, on the court, yeah, Russ will make the worst decisions possible, and he's turnover prone, and he takes the dumbest shots ever. But again, when you look at the Rockets situation from a point guard standpoint, I think that's where Russ makes the most sense for that team. I do have a lot of trades cooked up, but I'm only going to do 5 for this video because if I do all the trades that I cooked up, it's going to be a very, very long video, and I'm not trying to go the series recap route yet where I can just do a 30-minute long tirade about, teams and all that. So I'm just going to do 5 trades so this video can be as short as is. This next trade involves the Boston Celtics. I have Anthony Simons and a 2026 first rounder for Terrence Mann. Now, before y'all get your torches and pitchforks ready, I understand that Terrence Mann is not worth a first rounder with his stat line. Maybe a couple years ago when he was with the Clippers and he had his career high in points, I know he might be worth probably a second rounder, if anything. But I'm just saying, in the context of this, the Boston Celtics have been looking to get off of Anthony Simons' contract for a good while now. Now, I know Anthony has been playing really well under Joe Mazzulla, and I know the Celtics are thriving without Jason Tatum. And I know some of y'all are going to say, well, X, why can't they just trade for a big and use Anthony's contract? I know Sporting Logically mentioned something about Yusuf Nurkic. I am not a big Yusuf Nurkic guy, but Nurkic has been playing really well with the Utah Jazz, and who knows, he might fit this Celtics system really well, and he could be a really nice replacement for guys like Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis, who are obviously no longer on the team. But a guy like Terrence Mann, I think, is a good plug-in player for Joe Mazzulla's system. Why? Because I said it in my offseason video talking about the Celtics, and I think I talked about it in my Celtics video a couple months ago, when they were playing really well, obviously. Terrence Mann, for me, would be the picture-perfect replacement for guys like Jrue Holiday and Marcus Smart. Now, does he have the stat lines that Jrue and Marcus Smart had for Boston? No. But for me, part of the reason why Terrence Mann has struggled ever since his breakout season with the Clippers in 2022 is because Tyronn Lue has given him a really inconsistent role. Some nights, T. Lue asks him to be the main ball handler. Sometimes he asks him to be that 3-and-D guy, which he is, or 3-and-D slasher, which he is. Other times, they had Terrence Mann try to be the scorer for when, Norman Powell, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and Paul George were not playing all that well. I just think Terrence Mann has had a really inconsistent role, and to an extent, he's had an inconsistent role this year with the Brooklyn Nets and a bit of last year with the Atlanta Hawks, playing with Trae Young and George Niang and Karis LeVert, yada, yada, yada. For Boston, not only you get off of Anthony's contract, you might have to take on money when it comes to Terrence Mann's contract, because I believe that contract that he has right now, from what I'm seeing on Spotrac, I think that was a deal that he signed with the LA Clippers. I think he signed that extension in 2023 or 2024, one of those years. But like I said in my Celtics video, with Terrence Mann, you get a guy that not only hustles, he's a good defender. He's not the defender that Jrue and Smart were, but you put him in a system with Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, it'll be sort of identical to what he had with guys like Reggie Jackson, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard, except he's playing with players that are better than those three, I feel like. So Terrence Mann would be a really, really good player in that Celtics system, and they would have a good starting two-guard next to Derek White, and the objective here is to get Peyton Pritchard off the bench. Yes, I know the Celtics might need an upgrade for a big, but with the way guys like Neemias Queta and Luka Garza have been playing, I feel like they could save that big guy for later down the line, potentially the offseason. So I think Terrence Mann would fit what the Celtics are doing now, especially when Jason Tatum comes back. Even though I don't think he'll be coming back this year, who knows? Now, this is my fifth and final trade I will do for this video. Any other trades I didn't bring up, I'll probably put in the description. But this next trade involves my Lakers, man, and this might surprise some of y'all that are Lakers fans up in here, man. But hear me out when I say this. The Lakers acquired Bennedict Mathurin from the Indiana Pacers for Gabe Vincent and Jake LaRavia. Now, I understand Jake LaRavia has been balling for the Lakers and Gabe Vincent has been a lot better for the Lakers as of late. He's been okay. But here's a couple things, though. The Lakers are in a crossroads between what the hell we're going to do with LeBron James, since there's apparently tension rising between him, his people, and Jeanie Buss. And then, obviously, how are they going to make that transition from LeBron to Luka Doncic? Here's where I can tell you where Mathurin comes into play. Mathurin is an expiring deal with the Indiana Pacers, and a lot of teams have been interested in him. The LA Clippers have been one of those teams. The Brooklyn Nets have been one of those teams. Minnesota has been also one of those teams. But again, considering what's going on there, I probably wouldn't want to go to Minnesota right now. The Atlanta Hawks are another one of those teams. And I feel like I'm missing another team. I believe it was the Suns that are also interested in him. I could be wrong on that, though. Correct me in the comments below. I think it was either the Suns or the Heat. One of those teams. Again, I could be wrong. But here's where the Lakers come into play for a guy like Ben Mathurin. Gabe Vincent and Jake LaRavia, I feel like, can be very expendable because of what Mathurin can do. Now, what's going to happen if they do trade for Mathurin? Would they want to start him even though they have LeBron? Or would they have him come off the bench? I think they would probably have to have him come off the bench, if anything. But I would want to do this trade if I'm the Lakers as opposed to a guy like Andrew Wiggins, even though you probably wouldn't have to give that much up for Wiggins too, because I think his is also an expiring deal, or his contract's probably a 1+1 with the deal he signed with the Golden State Warriors. Now he's with the Miami Heat. But I personally feel like you get a guy like Bennedict Mathurin. Ben Mathurin can get you buckets off the bench, and I think he would really help Luka and Austin Reeves going forward. Why? Because I've said this in my, I think it was my previous video, not my previous video. I said in one of my videos talking about the Indiana Pacers, Ben Mathurin has the capability to score 20 to 22 points a game, but currently this year he's averaging 18 a game, which I guess he's been in and out of the lineup because of injury. I have not watched too much Pacer games, but I feel like with his expiring deal and the fact that they want to extend a guy like Aaron Nesmith and their eyes are pretty much set on AJ Dybonsa in this year's draft, it makes Mathurin expendable. I said this in my video last offseason talking about the Indiana Pacers. A guy like Ben Mathurin, his play style reminds me so much of a guy like Devin Booker, of a guy like Anthony Edwards, and a guy like Paul George. What does he have in common with all those three? He's a really good defender. I know Book isn't a great defender, but Ant and PG are really good defenders when they want to be and choose to be. I mean, Book too, because he can play defense as we saw in the Olympics a couple of years ago. But my point is that he is a 3-level scorer. The guy can take you off the dribble, whether it's going to the basket at will, similar to Book, Ant, and PG, or he could take you off the dribble into a 3 or into a mid-range. Again, similar to D. Book, Ant Edwards, and Paul George. And when the Lakers do get a guy like Ben Mathurin, I don't think JJ Redick is going to run plays for him like he's Ant or PG, but at the same time, I don't expect JJ Redick to run him plays like he's a guy like, I don't know, a Royce O'Neal or Grayson Allen or who else? A Dorian Finney-Smith, who he's coached last year when Dorian came to the Lakers. I think JJ would run him the type of plays that the Phoenix Suns coach is doing with Dylan Brooks and what Eric Spoelstra and Ty Lue did with Norman Powell. I feel like he's more in those mobile players in terms of like stat lines. He just has the play styles of guys like those three superstars, D-Book and PG. Again, the Pacers are not going to resign Mathurin, I don't feel like, because of the fact they want to extend Nesmith. They are extended Pascal Siakam. Tyrese Halliburton is on his max deal. They want to probably extend Andrew Nembhard as well. And again, they have their sights set on AJ Dybonsa in this upcoming draft, or Cam Boozer, depending on where the Pacers fall draft lottery wise. And then again, they need a guy like they need a starting big. I was about to say, which an honorable mention is that I have Daniel Gafford going to the Indiana Pacers for Obi Toppin for that exact reason. They need a starting big, and then you have guys like Jarris Walker and Ethan Thompson taking on the Obi Toppin role essentially. And again, with Obi's injury, who knows how he's going to come back, and who knows if he comes back at all this year. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it would be worth trading Obi Toppin for a guy that you would know would be that starting big. Because next year, I don't know if Tyrese Halliburton wants to play with Jay Huff as his starting big or Tony Bradley as his starting big. I think Daniel Gafford fits that system as well. But again, that trade's more of an honorable mention. That's not one of the 5 pieces or the 5 main trades I want to discuss in this video. And for the Pacers, getting guys like Jake LaRavia and Gabe Vincent, I think Jake LaRavia would fit Rick Carlisle's system. Gabe Vincent can be a combo guard off the bench next to TJ McConnell, or you could possibly start him next to Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Nesmith, whatever the case may be. I feel like Gabe is an expiring deal, and I think Jake LaRavia signed with us on a 1-year minimum deal. I got to check that trade again, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on the money with those two. I think the Pacers can make good use of those guys. Maybe Jake LaRavia could be part of Indiana's future. Maybe Gabe Vincent could come off the bench as a combo guard next to TJ as well, and they would be stacked at the guard position as is. But that is officially my 5 trades that I put down. Again, other trades that I didn't mention, I'm probably going to put in the description, or I probably might pin it into a comment. But those are my 5 trades. Now, let me hand it over to you guys. What trades do you think should these teams make? Obviously, a hot name has been Michael Porter Jr., a hot name has been Keon Ellis. Guys like Karl-Anthony Towns and Giannis have been hot names on the trade block. I didn't include those guys for a reason, because those teams are kind of complicated when it comes to making trades. And I feel like other YouTubers have better insights on those guys than I do. I know Karl Towns has been a name thrown around for a team like the Orlando Magic because they want to get off his contract. The Giannis trade has been very, very complicated because Giannis has been kind of passive aggressive when it comes to his future with the Bucks, but the Bucks have recently concluded that, look, I think it's best for both of us to move on. We want you to be on a contender, and we deserve to start off fresh because I don't think the Milwaukee Bucks have that much of an advantage draft capital wise. They're not LA Clipper level screwed because of the amount of picks they gave up in the SGA Paul George trade. But I feel like if they can move on from Giannis for some first rounders, I feel like they would for sure start their rebuild after their playoff shortcomings since the 2021 championship. But again, what trades do you guys have? Do you guys like the trades that I put up here? Do you guys have a problem with some of these trades I put up here or trades I didn't mention at all? Please let me know your thoughts below. Again, this was a pretty long video, so again, these are trades that I was able to come up with. Any other trade I did not come up with, I'm probably going to pin it in a comment down below or probably pin it in the description. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. What do you think, what do y'all think is going to happen in this trade deadline for sure? Like, I know some people say Michael Porter Jr. is going to go to the Warriors. Keon Ellis might go to the Knicks. What do y'all think? Whatever y'all thoughts are, just put it in the comment section below. Yeah, this should be a very interesting trade deadline. But until my next video, I'm X. Or that's the end of this video. I forgot to do that intro the last time. That's the end of this video. I'm X. Deuces.